Welcome back. In the previous step, we started deploying our virtual machine. It took a couple of minutes and the virtual machine is now ready. It says your deployment is complete. You can see the power of the cloud. I'm right now in India, and within minutes, I was able to deploy a virtual machine to a location in the east of United States. That's the power cloud provides you with. You can easily deploy your applications to multiple regions around the world. Now, what I would do over here is to say, go to resource. This would take us to the virtual machine which was created. The other option of getting to the virtual machine is to just type in my first VM. So you can type in my first VM, and in the resources, you should see the VM that we have created, and you can choose that and come in here. The other option would be to just say virtual machines. So search for virtual machines. It would give you a list of virtual machines. You can see all the details of the specific virtual machine we have created, which is my first VM. You can see the subscription. You can see the resource group. You can see where it is created. You can see the status, which is running. You can see the operating system, which is Linux. And you can see the size, which is standard B1S. You can also see a public IP address, which is assigned to this specific virtual machine. Once you click in, you'll also be able to perform a number of operations. You can restart it, you can stop it, you can delete it if you'd want, and you can see a lot of details about this specific virtual machine. Now that we have a virtual machine running, what we want to do is to be able to SSH into it, to be able to connect to it, and run a few commands against it. How do we do that? The way we can do that is by clicking connect. So once you click connect in here, you can choose how you'd want to connect. What we have created is a Linux virtual machine. And the way we can connect to Linux virtual machines is by doing SSH. So I'll say SSH. And it would show a few details around how we can connect using SSH. And to be able to SSH into this virtual machine, what we'll do is we'll make use of a command line utility which Azure provides us with. In addition to Azure Portal, which is the UI, in the Azure Portal, you also have Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell can be used to execute commands from the command line. We would want to do an SSH, and one of the options to do an SSH is from the command line. The screen now says, welcome to Azure Cloud Shell. There are two shells which are supported by Azure Cloud Shell. One is called Bash, and the other one is called PowerShell. Bash is typically used on Linux, and PowerShell is typically used on Windows. What we'll do now is to choose Bash. As it says in here, Azure Cloud Shell requires an Azure file share to persist files. Let's use the free trial subscription, and let's go ahead and say create storage. Once you do that, you would see that you would be logged in into terminal. Now what we want to do is to be able to SSH into the virtual machine. And to be able to SSH into the virtual machine, we would need to have the private key. Do we have the private key with us? Yes, it's in our downloads folder. What we would need to first do is to upload the file from the downloads folder to Azure Cloud Shell. How can we do that? I can click upload download files in here. I'll go ahead and click this and say upload. And if I go over to the downloads folder, you should see the file in here. This is the key file which we downloaded earlier. So I'll say choose for upload. So what would happen now is the file would be uploaded, and you can see the status right now that it's complete. So if I go ahead here and say ls, it would say my first VM _ key.pem. That's cool. Let's follow the instructions which are present in here right now. Over here, connect via SSH with client. It says open the client of your choice. We are making use of Azure Shell. We are making use of Bash. And what we want to first do is to ensure you have read-only access to the private key. The way you can do that is the command which is present in here. You can exactly type in the command which you can see in there. chmod 400, and instead of Azure user.pem, what we would want to do is to use the key file which is present in here. You can copy this, Control-C or Command-C, and paste it in. So change mode, my first VM _ key.pem. So this would change the mode. And now I can use this private key to do SSH. And the command to be able to do that is also present in here. So SSH -i, the path to the key path, Azure user, at this specific thing. All these commands might look complex, but actually they are very, very simple to execute. All that you need to do is to follow the instructions. So SSH-I, you can see that in here. The private key path, where is it present? My first VM _ key.pem. That's cool. And last one which you want to do is, let's copy this in here. Azure user is the username at the public IP of the VM, which is 1390.3580. You might have a different value. What I would recommend you to do is to copy whatever is present in here. So Control-C and Control-V and press enter. You can see that it's saying, do you want to connect to it? Yes, I would want to connect to it. So you can enter Y or yes. Oops, it's asking me to enter yes. So let's go ahead and say yes. And cool. We are now connected to my first VM. Let's type in who am I. Who am I gives the username, Azure user. Let's check if Python is installed over here. Python -- version. There is Python 2.7 which is installed over here. Let's try and print host name. What's the host name? My first VM. That's the name that we have given to this specific virtual machine. Let's type in hostname -i. So hostname -i would give the IP address of this specific host. In this step, we were able to quickly connect to the virtual machine and execute a few commands. Let's play with this a little bit more in the subsequent steps. I'll see you in the next step.